Welcome back, my lovely friends. Today we are diving into day 9 of dephemerember. And today's prompt, altered envelope and coffee mug stain, feels like an invitation to talk about something very human, something we all deal with, the everyday messiness of life. Here's my coffee cup I can use later to make some stains. And I also would like to introduce Barbara from 49 Dragonflies and Luise Heinzel and say thank you for the last 5 years that they hosted this beautiful event. So for today, who could have known that today would be the perfect crafting session to explore what happens when things go a little bit sideways. When the plan is clear in my head, but the hands do something else. When glue goes where it should not, when paper tears, and when a technique does not behave the way I had imagined. I start this project full of optimism. I have collected these window envelopes over time, thinking they would be perfect to alter one day. Then Jem from Jem's Creative Space, my lovely swap partner this year, sent me this beautiful rose-printed paper napkin in our swap parcel. So when I found this idea of covering the entire envelope with tissue paper in one go while magically keeping the window intact, I thought, that's it. I'll try this today. It looked so easy when I saw it done in the other video, almost effortless. You just cover the whole envelope with tissue paper, gluing everything down with Mod Podge while just leaving the window untouched by glue. It looked so graceful and intuitive that I thought, perfect, this will be a lovely start to today's prompt. So I'm taking my tissue paper here, taking off the first layer. Let me get my glasses, I forgot my glasses. Here, just take the first layer of my tissue paper and just start. I had dismantled this envelope, opened up both sides, and just now I will cover the whole envelope with glue, just leaving the window free. Okay, so let's recount what are the next steps. I need my layer of tissue paper and I will just put it here on top, but first let me get my Mod Podge. I think I said it now so often. I always think the name should be Mod Podge, but no, I know it's Mod Podge. And so I am making sure that here, can you see, I'm just going to the edge here of the window with my Mod Podge, so that when I put the tissue paper over it, that it will not catch where the window is. It just will glue down around it and the entire envelope, but it will leave the window free. And then once everything is dried down, I can just open this window like with a scissor or with a technique using some water. But for now, I'm just covering the envelope and will glue down the tissue. So now I place the tissue paper down and begin smoothing it gently, trusting that if I follow the steps, everything will line up the way it's supposed to. For a moment, it even feels promising. I put more glue on top, the paper settles, and I think, yes, this is going well. But then there's a little pause, a quiet awareness that I cannot actually see the edge of the window underneath. The tissue is so full with the roses that it hides everything. And I get that tiny flicker of a thought, I hope I'm not gluing over the wrong spot. Just a whisper of uncertainty. And then, as I keep smoothing the paper, I feel it, that shift, that moment when my brain catches up and realizes exactly what has happened. I have glued straight across the window. The one part I was trying to leave untouched is now secured firmly under a layer of glue and tissue. I try to lift the edge gently, hoping maybe it will peel back. Maybe it's not too late. But as soon as I pull, I can feel it. The paper is already bonded to the first surface. It's not lifting. It is not forgiving. It is well and truly stuck. Oh, in that instant, I know this first attempt is not going to be the one. The technique did not translate from the video into my hands today. And the moment ends there, right at the edge of that little crafting disappointment. Very human moment of, well, that did not go quite as planned. So I put that first envelope aside for now and begin again. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do, both in crafting and in life, is to take a small step back and give ourselves a fresh starting point. I reach for another envelope, this time with sewing pattern paper in my hands. The technique is exactly the same as before, but now I'm paying full attention to where the window sits. And the funny thing is, it is already easier because unlike the tissue napkin, I can actually see the window through the thin sewing paper pattern. The outline is clearer, the material is more cooperative, and I notice myself feeling just a little bit more confident. So as I glue down the paper, I move slowly and deliberately. Not because the technique requires slowness, but because there is something soothing about letting your hands catch up with your mind. Like each wrinkle that forms just blends naturally into the pattern, like it was always meant to be there. And the more I smooth it down, the more I realize how different a second attempt feels when we are no longer fighting with frustration. This is not about perfection. This is about rhythm. Gluing, smoothing, adjusting. A small pause to breathe. Sometimes that is all we need to reset. There's something deeply grounding about doing the same technique again. Just with more awareness, more gentleness, and more acceptance of what might happen. After that, I take the last little piece of Gems Rose napkin that I have left over. There's only enough left to cover the front of one envelope. While I'm gluing the top of the napkin, I hold it up against my window light several times. The rose tissue is so vibrant that it hides the outline of the envelope window completely. And after my first mishap, I want to be absolutely certain I'm not gluing over the wrong areas again. So here I am, tilting the envelope gently, letting the daylight shine through until I can clearly see where the window sits. Once I'm sure of the placement, I smooth the tissue down carefully, letting the roses settle into the tiny wrinkles. And even though it is such a simple action, something in me softens a bit. There's a tenderness to tissue paper. It asks you to slow down, to work with the material rather than against it. And as this envelope begins to take on that soft floral look, I feel a small shift inside. This is quite a familiar moment for me when creativity returns after a bit of a disappointment before, reminding me that beauty rarely requires perfection. Sometimes it just asks to be gentle. So when the front is finished, my eyes drift back to the envelope I had discarded earlier. The one I tossed aside with a quiet sigh of frustration. And suddenly I feel a spark of curiosity again. Maybe it is not as ruined as I thought. Maybe it only needs a different approach. So I reach into the paper bin and pull it back out. The act itself feels almost symbolic, as if I'm offering this little envelope the second chance I often wish I could offer myself in difficult moments. There's something tender about holding it again, something almost humbling. It reminds me how quick we can be to discard things or even parts of ourselves the moment they do not turn out the way we hoped. And yet, when I take a breath and I look again, There's still possibility here, still material to work with, still softness beneath the frustration. I start covering the white areas with sewing pattern paper, giving it another layer, a new beginning. The thin paper folds itself around the imperfections in a way that feels forgiving. As I smooth it down, the envelope begins to look less like a mistake and more like a story unfolding. That transformation is subtle but really meaningful to me. It tells me that repair does not have to be perfect to be beautiful. Sometimes it is the visible layers that make something interesting. So as the paper settles and the envelope slowly becomes something else, I feel a surprising sense of hope. It's a quiet feeling, almost shy, but it sits in my chest like a warm little reminder that junk journaling helps me to pick up the lost pieces. Watching something previously deemed broken become usable again is strangely moving for me. It mirrors the moment in life when we pick ourselves up after a disappointment, brush off the dust, and try again in a way that feels a little wiser and a little softer. And more than anything, this moment reminds me that mistakes are not endpoints. They are signals. They are invitation to shift direction, soften our expectations, and find a new way through. They ask us to stay curious, to stay open, and to let the process lead us somewhere we might not have imagined at the start. So, once everything has dried, it is time to free the windows. This is the step I have been both eager for and slightly nervous about. I start with one of the pattern paper envelopes because I'm curious how it will behave. I take my watercolor pen filled with water and begin gently moistening the tissue, just like the tutorial suggested. It goes soft immediately, like almost buttery, and for a moment I feel optimistic again. I start peeling the tissue away, expecting the clear window underneath to reveal itself. But as I lift the damp paper, something feels off. It is too thin, too soft. And then I realize what has happened. I have not just removed the top layer of tissue, I have removed everything. The clear window film that was supposed to remain in place has come off with it, leaving an actual hole where the window used to be. I hold the envelope up and just laugh quietly to myself. There is this bittersweet moment where I feel both amused and a little bit frustrated. It is such a perfect example of how even when we follow the instructions and take our time, something unexpected can still happen. And that is the truth of crafting. It is also the truth of being human. Even when we do everything right, life does not always respond the way we imagine. But I don't give up. I move on to the next envelope, determined to try again with a new approach. This time I take my needle and poke the tiniest hole right in the center of the tissue that sits over the window. Just a tiny bit of an opening. I feel more cautious now, more aware of how fragile everything is. Then carefully, I peel off the edges of the window. I'm also using my metal ruler as a steady support. It acts like a protective boundary, keeping the peel from spreading or tearing too far. And with very slow movements, I begin lifting the tissue paper away. This time I can feel the difference immediately. The paper loosens in a more controlled way, separating from the clear film instead of pulling the whole thing off. It has been still delicate, still risky, but it worked. And I feel this quiet satisfaction, not a big triumphant feeling, just a small warm yes in my chest. And what stands out to me is that the success did not come from force. It came from gentleness, new techniques, and patience, just like so many parts of life. Sometimes the first approach keeps you stuck. Sometimes the second one doesn't work either. But with a softer hand, a different tool, and a calmer breath, something stuck can be finally let go of. And that small opening can feel like a real victory. And then comes the coffee stain moment. My mug says Schiedwetter, which is a word from northern Germany meaning bad weather. And honestly, I love stamping with this mug because it reminds me that even on the messy days, even when the sky feels heavy or the mood feels grey, we can still create something playful. But before I continue, I would like to have a little break and something sweet. I got these little treats from Jem. That one lands immediately in my mouth. And then I have here this little ginger man. Oh, look at this. He's so cute. I put that to the side here. Hope there's no glue getting on it. And then I have this bonbon here. Oh, thank you, Jem. That really makes my day. It is, look, I wish me luck for all my little coffee things. Okay, a sip of coffee, and there we go. It's almost humorous to use a mug that literally declares bad weather to make something that feels expressive and alive. And there's something really playful about that. It is a reminder that the days that feel a bit off do not have to be unproductive or hopeless. They can simply be days that leave different marks. Coffee stains are imperfect by nature. They run, they bloom, they spread in unexpected ways. Sometimes the ring is crisp, sometimes it blurs into soft gradients, and sometimes it doubles up on itself in a way you did not plan. But that is the magic of them, I find. They have a life of their own, and creating them today feels like a small ritual of acceptance for me. A way of saying, yes, things spill sometimes. Yes, life gets messy. Yes, we cannot always control the shape of the moment or the way the circle dries. But even so, there's a space inside that messiness for something interesting to happen. And I think that is why I keep returning to coffee stains in my journals. They embody that gentle truth that not everything beautiful begins with intention. Some things begin with an accident or a wobble or a dark ring on a desk you did not mean to leave. And when we stamp them deliberately, it is like we are practicing acceptance with our whole body. Letting go a little, softening the grip we often have on being careful and tidy and controlled. It is permission to let the stain exist without rushing to fix it. Sometimes, as I watch the stain settle into the paper, I think about how many moments in life are like this. Moments where something spills or goes differently than planned or leaves a mark we did not expect. Our instinct often is to hide it or apologize for it. But every once in a while, that unexpected mark becomes the beginning of something more honest, something with texture, something that tells a story. Sometimes a stain is just a stain. And sometimes it becomes a starting point, a place where imperfection transforms into possibility. A place where we realize that life, like crafting, is not about preventing mess, but about learning how to make something meaningful out of the marks we leave along the way. So, when I look at these altered envelopes now, I don't see failure. I see a collection of moments where I had to adjust. Moments where I kept going. Moments where the mistake opened a different door. These envelopes carry their own story now. Not a perfectly executed technique, but a truly tried and lived one. Life is lived in the imperfect margins, not in the polished center. And that is where we grow, if we let ourselves. And these envelopes will be so useful for some of the coming prompts. They are imperfect, they are textured, they are full of history, and they are ready to be transformed again in another prompt, which feels like a lovely metaphor for every single one of us. So my invitation for you today is simple. Let something be messy, let something be imperfect. Let yourself keep going, even when it does not turn out the way you hoped. There's beauty in that. There's truth in that. And there's always creativity waiting on the other side of a moment that went differently than you expected. So, thank you for crafting with me today and for sharing this beautifully human space where mistakes are welcome and stains can become art. I will see you again for the next prompt.